People can't forget this. It was a key because gold kind of turned around the same time when the Bank of International Settlements, which is really the central bank's clearing bank, it's the central bank's banker, as some like to call it, when they raised gold to a tier one investment along with stocks, that was an indication back then that the central banks were going to be more involved with the gold, and it continues. So, I'll say it again. You know how bullish I've been, and I've said it now in recent weeks when I get interviewed. Gold's going to have a three handle with it without ever having a below two handle in it. What is a 2,600, 3,000? It's not that far away. It's not that impossible. So I still retain a very, very bullish stance overall towards it.
Gold prices continue their relentless climb, reaching a fresh all-time high of $2,586 per ounce on Friday. The precious metals rally shows no signs of slowing, with prices hovering around $2,580 during early Asian trading on Monday. This surge comes amidst growing expectations of significant interest rate cuts by the Federal Reserve, with all eyes now turning to Wednesday's crucial Federal Open Market Committee meeting. Central banks increasingly turn to gold as a hedge against economic and geopolitical instability, particularly in Africa. This trend reflects a broader shift in monetary policy as nations seek to diversify their financial portfolios and protect themselves from global economic uncertainties. PeterGrandich, a veteran financial expert with over 3 decades of market experience, suggests that this move may signal preparations for major changes in the global monetary system. Central banks are not only buying gold, but also repatriating their existing reserves, Grandich notes. This behavior indicates a growing concern about the stability of traditional financial systems. While central bank purchases have been the primary driver behind gold's recent rally, Western institutional investors also show renewed interest. Gold ETFs have seen increased inflows, suggesting that professional money managers are reassessing gold's role in their portfolios. However, it's worth noting that despite the metal's record-breaking performance, enthusiasm from the broader investing public remains surprisingly muted. Geopolitical tensions continue to play a significant role in gold's ascent. Ongoing conflicts in Ukraine, Russia, and the Middle East have heightened demand for gold as a safe haven asset. These factors and economic uncertainties have led Grandich to make a bold prediction. Gold prices could reach $3,000 per ounce in the foreseeable future. Make sure to tune in for our expert analysis. Don't miss out on future content. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay in the loop. Your support is greatly appreciated.
Well, it's really a continuation, a little bit different. I'll mention in a moment about silver, but gold is really just continuing a mega bull market that still to this day, most Americans have not participated in it in any way, shape, or form. It is a huge accumulation, continues on the world stage by central banks, by very large investors. As we get to this BRIC meeting, as you know, I've felt that a good reason for the gold's performance over these last few years has been the expectation, and we're probably going to learn a lot more than we learned last year on how far along they are, on how they're going to commence their trading and what kind of monetary system or systems they're going to use. We've gotten some indications already where they've spoken about a unit that's going to include about 40% in gold, which is very, very unique. And I always ask this to my don't worry, be happy crowd friends that still work on Wall Street, who, as you know, I believe you can toss them off the Empire State Building and all the way down, they'd all say the same thing. Hey, so far, so good. I ask them, what's causing gold's rise? It's not a speculation. It's not some type of stock and all. What has led to this, and why is it that central banks are such aggressive buyers? And the discussion that doesn't take place a lot, Elijah, I know in your world it does, but in the regular world it doesn't at all. Why did so many countries repatriate so much gold from the United States back to their central banks? Obviously, I think I know what the answer is, because they're preparing for the changes that are coming on the world stage in returns to monetary, but they've also have come to conclude that gold is even a better holding than U.S. securities, that it has now actually outperformed the performance of bonds over the last 50 years. And one last thing, Elijah, I know it's a run-on sentence for me here, but People can't forget this. It was a key because gold kind of turned around the same time when the Bank of International Settlements, which is really the central bank's clearing bank, it's the central bank's banker, as some like to call it, when they raised gold to a tier one investment along with stocks, that was an indication back then that the central banks were going to be more involved with the gold, and it continues. So, I'll say it again. You know how bullish I've been, and I've said it now in recent weeks when I get interviewed. Gold's going to have a three handle with it without ever having a below two handle in it. And with us at 2,600, 3,000, it's not that far away. It's not that impossible. So I still retain a very, very bullish stance overall towards it. I think the far more important question is, why is it doing what it's doing, and who's doing it? And it's clearly an effort. And the other thing that understand is this: let's not forget other geopolitical factors. Let's not just focus on the BRICS. Listen, we have Russia telling basically NATO that if you guys end up using these missiles to give to Ukraine to hit us in, to Moscow and all, we're not against using nuclear weapons. That's a pretty scary thing. We have in the Middle East now, Israel's fighting on two or maybe three different fronts. There's all sorts of attacks in the sea where ships are being attacked. And we still have China and Taiwan and a few other places. So I think geopolitics is another reason that people outside of North America who have been more concerned about safety and all, and naturally having a kinship to gold, is another bullish factor for the gold market.
PeterGrandich has been vocal about the political and economic challenges he believes would follow a Trump victory in the next election. Grandich believes that if Trump were to win again, opposition against him would intensify. He argues that a smooth post-election transition is unlikely, with heightened political conflict following a brief honeymoon period. Trump, however, remains confident that his economic plans, particularly surrounding tariffs and oil, would set the U.S. on a path to prosperity. In recent speeches, Trump has emphasized how revenues from tariffs and the oil sector, which he described as liquid gold, would generate enough wealth to fund his ambitious economic agenda. Trump claims these funds would allow him to lower the national deficit, defeat inflation, reduce taxes, and cut consumer prices. He even suggested that there would be enough surplus to establish a new national sovereign wealth fund, which would continue to benefit the country in the long term. While Trump optimistically envisions an overflowing treasury, Grandich warns of the intensified political resistance that could hamper such grand plans, suggesting that any economic progress would face significant roadblocks. Let's get back to the interview.
If you and I had a conversation 20 years ago, maybe 15, but at least 15 to 20 or more, and we were just talking, and I said, hey, did you hear about this country? The guy who never had been political ran, shocked everybody, won. The 4 years he was in, they tried to impeach him twice. They blamed everything, collusion, all this other stuff on him. He lost a close election. Some people say it wasn't fair, etc. Just before that, there was a kind of a riot thing, and people made it like he was trying to overthrow the government. After he was out, they tried to charge him and did on several fronts. They even found him guilty on something. And if he didn't turn his head one day, he was probably going to be killed by an assassin's bullet that ended up just grazing him. Oh, and by the way, the guy that did beat him in that close election that people questioned, since the time he got elected, there was a lot of concerns and a lot of circumstantial evidence that he was crooked, his family was crooked, he was getting quite ill. But even a year before he would try to run again, they were already telling him that his second in command they should really replace because she's absolutely no good, useless, what have you. And then he gets the nomination only to be pushed out. And the girl that they just said a year ago was no good, they have her running now, and now some people are saying she's going to win. And you know what your response would have been to me? Pete, what third world banana republic are you speaking about? That's the God's honest truth. That's the United States right now. That's exactly what has transpired. So anybody that just sits there and goes, yeah, this is a simple breeze, it's going to, it's just going to go this way without any concern and all, is just asking for trouble. One of the other things that's happened in a generation and all, for those who believe in the Christian walk, the devil has disappeared out of the equation. Nobody talks about it. It's very rare that religious leaders speak about it. This is a perfect scenario for the devil at this point in time. So I know people don't, but I do. I take my faith seriously. And it's just it. So nothing would surprise me between now and election day. And quite frankly, I'd make this point. I think this is very important, Elijah. Even if Trump manages to win, and even if he manages to get sworn in, do you think these people who have done what they've done to him since the time he walked down that escalator in 2016 to now, do you think they're just going to stop and say, okay, we lost? No, I think they'll get worse than they've ever been. And that's why anything past the short honeymoon, even if Trump wins, I think we're going to have even more challenges than we've had up until now.
While central banks and institutional investors increasingly turn to gold as a hedge, this trend signals deeper concerns about the stability of traditional financial systems. At the same time, political dynamics in the U.S. add another layer of complexity, with potential economic shifts tied to the outcome of the next election. Whether or not these economic ambitions are realized will depend on how the political landscape unfolds in the coming months. Share your perspective in the comment section. If the video resonates with you, join our community by subscribing to our channel and enabling notifications with the bell icon. Thank you for being a part of our community.